Judge Polito? Oh, a minute. There's a 2-minute line. Judge Polito first.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jennifer Melito. I'm a former criminal district court judge from Dallas County, and I am a candidate for justice on the Fifth Court of Appeals, Place 2. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was appointed to the bench by Governor Perry in December of 2009. While I was on that bench, I handled approximately 20 jury trials, disposed of about 2,000 cases. I had the lowest cost per disposition out of 19 of the criminal courts, and I also had some of the lowest jail population, not because I was letting people out of jail, but because we came to work every day and worked until the work was done. Before that, I worked for the Public Defender's Office and also for the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. This court handles not just criminal cases, but also civil and family cases. I also have civil experience. I was general counsel of an internet financial services company for approximately 18 months, handled everything there from BBB complaints all the way to when we fired our CEO one night. So I handled all the employment law with that. I've done trials and appeals. I was in the appellate section of the Dallas County District Attorney's Office working on the death penalty writs and habeas corpus. And since I've been in private practice, I've authored myself, doing all the research, all the writing and the argument on approximately 10 cases, and I have about 7 pending right now. But most importantly is I'm a grassroots conservative Republican. I have voted in every single primary I have voted in is a Republican primary, and I think that's important. I've also been to my precinct convention, the senatorial convention, the state convention, and I was a guest at the national convention. I've walked my neighborhood for conservative Republican candidates, and I hope that people will walk for me as the conservative choice in this court. Jennifer Melito for 5th District Court of Appeals.
Judge Polito, what do you perceive as the great...
Let's go to Jeff Cohen for the next bio. Who's going out that door?
My name is Jeff Cohen. Thank you all for having us today. I too am a former district judge from Dallas County. I was a family court district judge. I'm not originally from Texas. I got here as soon as I can by meeting a Texas gal and marrying her back in 1974, and I've been here ever since. I practiced law for 18 years. I had a general, civil, and criminal practice. I have tried everything in both all of the courts that will be heard by the Court of Appeals, that being family, criminal, civil, probate, juvenile. Any case that comes out of trial court, I have tried before in my 18 years as a trial lawyer. I then in 1994 became a family court judge, and I held that job for 13 years. During the period of time that I was a family court judge, I made literally thousands of actual decisions. Not just signing my name onto an order that everybody agreed to, but facing people in court and making decisions. And that's what judges do. You have to be able to decide cases. That's what the public comes to us for, is a solution to their problems. And I did that for 13 years. In 2006, like all of us, I lost my job down in Dallas County. I then became a mediator and helped people avoid the courthouse by settling their cases without going to court. I've mediated over 800 cases. I've been an arbiter and a special judge since then. I'm now running for the Court of Appeals. I've put that practice on hold to run if we ever get a primary date. Hopefully we'll be able to move forward. I'm also a conservative. I believe in limited government. I don't believe anybody, at least no one in Collin County, would tell you that. Would not tell you that. But I have a record that shows that I'm a conservative. I reduced my budget when I was on the court by over 60%, and I made those tough decisions for people coming to family court in a conservative manner. Thank you.
Mr. Evans.
Okay, ready? All right. Good morning, or afternoon now. I'm former Judge David Evans, and I was formerly a civil district judge in Dallas County. And Joe Morris is retiring. He formerly was a civil district judge before he was a Court of Appeals justice. And I am running for the 5th Court of Appeals place too. And I'm so delighted to be here and to have this conservative consortium of Tea Party groups and Republican groups that vet us. And I really appreciate you looking into this. I am truly a conservative, and have always been a conservative. And I believe that all people are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that the Constitution was written to secure those rights, deriving the power of not just the federal government, but even our local governments, Texas government, from the consent of the governed. And I believe that, and I rule that way by, for example, not legislating from the bench. And when I was a judge, for example, and a request for a sex change was made, speaking only from the text of that public order, I denied that request because the legislature had not given us courts jurisdiction to do such a thing as declare a sex change. I'd like to deal with two things and get them out of the way. First of all, I did list that John Wiley Price, Commissioner Price, made a in-kind contribution to me, and what that was, he did not ever send me any money. He sent out a mailing in the 2006 general election for 7 or 8 of the best Republican judges, and I listed that as an in-kind contribution. He did not send me any money. And also, in the 2008 cycle, I did send money to John Edwards when he was portrayed in the media as a Christian loyal to his dying wife, and he was running against Hillary and against Barack Obama. Thank you so much.
Mr. Keith.
My name is Kevin Keith. I'm a candidate for the 5th Court of Appeals, Place 2. The seat that you're interviewing us for is Justice Joe Morris's seat, and when Justice Morris retires at the end of this year, this community and the court will lose an outstanding appellate justice with 20 years of experience. I have been practicing appellate law before the 5th District Court of Appeals and the other 13 district courts of appeals around the state for 32 years. I've also frequently practiced before the Texas Supreme Court, the 5th Circuit in New Orleans, and the United States Supreme Court as recently as its last term. I am board certified in civil appellate law, and I'm the only candidate in this race with that credential, and that's a credential you can trust because it has to be earned through the State Bar of Texas. I earned it in 1987. I have been recertified 4 times since then, every 5 years, and it's based on continuing legal education, an all-day exam, references from people that I litigate against on appeals. I'm also endorsed by the former Chief Justice of the 5th Court of Appeals, Republican Craig Enoch, who also served for many years on the Texas Supreme Court. And though we have 5 outstanding Republican opponents in this primary, he has endorsed me, and you can go to my website. There's a letter from him explaining why he's endorsed me at kevinkeithcampaign.com. What I do and what I've done for a living is what the justices on the Court of Appeals do on a daily basis. I am in private practice. I am currently the head of an appellate section for a commercial law firm. I have a wife, 4 daughters. My wife is 33 years, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Whitehill. I want to introduce myself to you a little bit about myself. Been married to my college sweetheart kid for 33 years. We have 3 grown children. Live in Coppell, Texas. We're almost done paying everybody through college. Professionally, I'm a partner with Gardier & Lynn Law Firm. Gardier is one of the state's oldest, largest, most well-respected law firms. Been there 30 years, been a partner there 23 years. I do complex commercial business litigation, business disputes of every kind, including antitrust, securities, what have you. I do trial work and appellate work. I also do our firm's trust and estate trial and appellate work. A little bit about my judicial philosophy. I believe in the Constitution that was written 224 years ago, and needs to be enforced the way it was written 224 years ago. I believe it's the legislature's job to write the statutes, and the court's job to enforce them the way they're written. I'm in this race because I'm passionate about the rule of law, passionate about its role in our society, and I'm passionate about this court's job as the guardian of the rule of law. I'm also passionate about the study of law. I invite you to go to whitehillforjustice.com and look at the unmatched record of academic excellence at SMU Law School, the unmatched professional accomplishments. As importantly, if not more importantly, look at what I've done outside the courtroom in life, being involved in the community leadership organizations, the community leadership in professional organizations. And you'll see why so many leading, most well-respected lawyers in Dallas, trial lawyers, courtroom lawyers, appellate lawyers, are supporting me in this race. People like Harriet Miers, who's one of President Bush's closest aides, supporting me in this race. Why Ken Anderson, Governor Perry's appointment secretary, for over 7 years, put more than 140 people on the bench, including a number of these justices on this court, for supporting Whitehill for Justice. Appreciate it. Appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now the first question goes to Mr. Lawyer.
Judge Bolito? That's right.
Whatever. I do number one, but I'm happy to defer.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Whitehill. What do you perceive as the greatest obstacles to justice, if any?
From the conceptual standpoint, I think it's judicial activism. It's running this country. It's a scourge on our society. People need to follow the Constitution in the originalist train of thought, the way it was written and in the context and in the understanding that the people have. When you stray away from that, things just start to go crazy. You lose predictability, you lose the rule of law. That's a problem. From a more practical standpoint in litigation today, the biggest threat to people getting access to the courts, of course, is the cost. And one of the biggest drivers of that is electronic discovery.
You want us to just go on down the line?
Yeah, we'll just go down the line and then we'll rotate on the next question.
So, Judge Bolito would be next.
No, let's go.
Okay. With everybody's permission, I'll go ahead and go. That's a great question. I heard of Justice Ginsburg's comments from Egypt about the Constitution being out of date, too inflexible, can't modify it enough. And I'm not exactly sure what she meant, whether she just was having a hard time getting 4 more votes and writing her own Constitution or what. I think that is the biggest problem, the view of the Constitution. Our Constitution is the most amazing, wonderful document ever written other than the Scriptures. And it has, it's just phenomenal, it's lasted, and the incorrect view of that is what is, I think, leading our country down the wrong paths in many rulings. I think the second thing would be the influence of money in the whole issue of justice, and it's a very tough issue to deal with, both the cost of litigation and also the difficulty of running for judge when you need to raise money and then run. Thank you so much.
I would like to say that I agree with my colleagues. I think those are two very important issues. The issue that I also think comes to mind is the personal responsibility that we fail to take as a society, and that's not really an issue that we as judges can handle because we're at the opposite end. Personal responsibility, people come to court looking for solutions that they should be doing themselves, and that causes an issue for the courts because we as a people are not designed to go ahead and make those rulings when people should be doing them themselves. But how you get to the personal responsibility is an issue for us as a society, not necessarily for an individual court. That would be the first reason, and the most important one.
I agree with the colleagues that have already spoken. I'm sure I'm going to agree with what Mr. Keith has to say. Judicial activism, I think, is our number one enemy. It comes down to what I think is an issue of ego, that someone believes that they are smarter or know better than what the law says and what the legislature passed. And that's the will of the people. And just to give you an example, the bench that I sat on, the 203rd Judicial District Court, the person that replaced me, I beat her twice in the Republican primary. She switched parties and ran as a Democrat and beat me by 3,000 votes in an election that had about 250,000 votes in it. But she is the judge that declared the death penalty unconstitutional recently. And so it's so important that we keep judges that will follow the law as written on the bench.
I don't disagree with anything that they've said. And going fifth, let me tell you what I'm sensitive about in the justice system. And it is the time that it takes to get justice, because it affects everyone who's involved with the justice system. In the past, I have been appointed as the only civil appellate practitioner to accompany the 5th District Court of Appeals to attend the National Task Force on Appellate Court Delay Reduction in San Diego, where we studied for a week techniques to try to expedite the process of obtaining justice. If you're involved in a court, you might be in a trial court for 2 or 3 years or longer, and then on appeal, it might take you another 2 or 3 years to get to the end. And the idea of the justice delayed is justice denied is very true unfortunately, in our judicial system. So trying to expedite getting to the right answer is important.
Okay, we'll move down the line for the next question.
All right, so who gets to go first now?
All right,
Judge Evans?
great, thank you.
Do you possess any expertise in a field other than law?
Well, I studied the Bible in Greek and Hebrew. I'm an avid hunter, and I suppose, therefore, I have kind of an expertise in shooting and hunting. And an avid dog lover. We have rescued 4 or 5 dogs, and my wife just rescued one for me for Christmas. She said in this campaign, I needed a friend. So we rescued a little chocolate lab. I'm trying to think of expertise. That's a very interesting question. I've done just about, you can't believe the number of different jobs I've done in my life, including I've cleaned toilets, I've shoveled chicken manure, I've been a plumber, all the way working through seminary and working through law school. But I don't consider myself expert in any of those things.
Well, I've frankly devoted my life to law, but one of the things as a corollary to that is I've been a sole practitioner, or was a sole practitioner until I got on the bench, and have been again since 2007. So I know what it's like to run a small business. I know what it's like to both sign a paycheck and also to write one to a staff. I know what it costs to do those issues and to work within a budget when you don't have an income. And when I went to the court, that's one of the things that I did when I became a district judge is I was sensitive to the fact that what we were replacing, whether we needed to replace it, as though it was I who was writing those checks. And that was one of the reasons I was able to reduce my budget by 60%. So I have that expertise. I also paint toys, wooden toys, for a charitable organization, about 10,000 a year. So I guess if I had to change professions, I could go into paint business.
Besides the law, the one thing that I'm really, really good at is I'm a very, very good country western dancer. I grew up traveling through West Texas with my parents, who were great country western dancers, and my daddy taught me how to dance at the Texas Cowboy Reunion in Stanford, Texas, which is outside of Abilene. And so, of course, I married a guy who cannot country western dance. And even though that's the case, we've been married for a little over 20 years, and he's getting better. Every year he gets a little bit better. But that's the only other good thing I'm good at besides the law.
That is an excellent question. I've told friends that if I wasn't a lawyer, I don't know what I would be. But things I'm interested in, I'm kind of an amateur historian, particularly with respect to World War II, particularly with respect to the D-Day landings. I've been to the Normandy beaches on 3 different occasions. I'm in the process of taking all of my daughters there individually so that they can see if there's any place on this planet where American exceptionalism can be found is on the Normandy beaches and on the cliffs of Pointe du Hoc. And that's something I'm passionate about. I've also coached 15 girls basketball teams over 10 years, so I have some expertise in that. And I'm a fisherman. I've always taken my daughters deep sea fishing or fishing for king salmon in Alaska. So those are my interests outside of the practice of appellate law.
I think my expertise outside of practice law is being involved in my family, my community, my faith, living life. I define judgment as the intersection of common sense and experience. And experience are the lessons learned from a life of effort. And just what I have learned from being involved in a number of community activities, being on the boards, being leadership roles as president of organizations, leadership roles in bar organizations, the antitrust section of the Dallas Bar Association, being involved in school activities, leadership in committees on the school activities, just learning as much as I can about life, being involved in mission organizations in Sub-Saharan Africa, dealing with AIDS orphans, children, and learning about all of that, being involved with my children's life, coaching sports, and all of that, and that's it.
Next question is going to start with Mr. Cohen. As a judge or prospective judge, what do you consider your greatest strengths and your greatest weaknesses?
Well, let me talk about my greatest strengths first. As a judge, I've made those decisions for all those years, and I got the highest ratings in the history of the Dallas Bar Association, 95 and 98%. That was both for knowing the law, applying it correctly, but also having the right judicial temperament. And I think that people that remember me who have been to my court remember that I had a judicial temperament that assisted them. I respected the people that came to my court as individuals, and they respected me and also the court system. And I think they went out of it with a different feeling than they would otherwise. So probably my greatest attribute is my patience and my judicial temperament. Weaknesses, I'm a workaholic. I work my staff very hard. I've worked until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I continue to do that. I see something, I feel like it needs to be corrected, and I work until it's done.
I think my greatest strength as a judge was just my love of the law. I really enjoy, I'm just nerdy enough to enjoy figuring out an issue and digging into the books and figuring out what the correct law is on a certain subject. And I was kind of surprised about, I practiced criminal law for approximately 16 years before I took the bench, and I was surprised at how much law I didn't know. And that was a pleasant surprise, because I got to dig into it and look at it. My biggest weakness, I found out very early, is that I cannot multitask, which is a good thing. I'm not one of those judges that can check my email and text while things are going on in the court. I really had to sit down and listen to everything. And I was glad that I did not have that skill, because I think that everyone that comes before the court deserves your undivided attention. And so I couldn't multitask, and I listened to everything that was going on, and I think it made me a better judge.
I think everybody likes to start with their strengths. My strengths would be the training and experience that I have, not only in civil appellate law, but I've also tried 22 jury cases to verdict in the trial court. And so I think I would bring to the bench 32 years of understanding of how cases are handled in the trial courts, and more importantly, how they're decided in the Court of Appeals. In terms of weakness, I wish I had experience. I think we probably all sitting up here wish we had experience as a appellate justice, because like anything, the more you do it, the more wisdom that you can accumulate and do that job better. I had an opportunity when I first got out of law school to work with the court as a clerk, law clerk, and I chose not to do that because it was a one-year position, and it was during the Carter administration. Mortgage rates were 18%, and I didn't want to be unemployed in 1 year, and so I wish I'd continued with the court at that time. Thank you.
Bill Whitehill again. My greatest strength is really the analytical skills that are borne out in my academic record, borne out by the fact that I am the go-to guy in my law firm, that when people have complex legal questions, that they want me on the case, they want me doing it. That leads me to be the person who's responsible for the legal issues, the analysis, the message in cases involving billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, down to very personal family matters. Weakness, I think, and it's hard to say that this is a weakness, but it's probably caring too much about my clients and caring too much about how things go in my cases.
Hi, David Evans again. Strength. I think my strengths are that I've tried 343 civil jury trials to verdict. I personally wrote the charge in every one of those. Obviously vetted it through the lawyer. They could object to it if they wanted to. Listened and might have made some changes, and not one of those jury charges was reversed, and not one of those verdicts was reversed. I have the longest elected judicial experience, and I think that's a big strength because I've seen a lot of things as an elected judge come through. And it gave me the opportunity to participate in drafting 5 statutes to correct problems in the courts, streamlining the courts, and solving some procedural problems. The webpage, judgedavidevans.com, has the sites to those for you lawyers out there who might want to check that out. And I think that running my courts, totally out? Oh, wow, sorry.
Judge Bolito.
Yes.
Final question. While serving on the bench, do you believe you have a role in bringing important legal or judicial issues before the people, the public? Why or why not? And what should your role be?
Well, I think our role always is to be a leader and a symbol of justice to the community. And how you go about that is working hard, getting there early, staying there late, doing your job, and then treating everybody with respect that comes before the court. I think too many times there are too many examples of judges that get really arrogant, think that they're above the people that they serve. And that's why I like that in Texas, judges are elected, because you can keep that in check. And so I do believe that we serve as a symbol of justice in Texas, and that and that we're leaders in the justice system in Texas, and that I hope that we are all good leaders in that.
I would agree with what Jennifer said. I think the justice on the Court of Appeals needs to lead by example, to do your job well and to do it hard all the time. It's the busiest appellate court in the state of Texas. Even though it's the largest, it's also, per opinion, per justice, the busiest court. And so you've got to have a strong work ethic to want to do this job. It's an error correction court. Its constitutional role between the trial courts and the higher appellate courts is one of simply applying the law as written and getting it right and trying to do it as efficiently as you can. And if you do that, if you do your job well, you will be an example to the community of a judicial system that is working. And we are all judged by our institutions, our schools, our churches, our government, and our courts.
Yes, I believe it is appropriate for judges to get out there and talk about professionalism, to educate people about how the court system works. Other than that, our job is to decide the cases before us, to take the existing law, apply it to the frozen record that comes up, and make a decision and explain that decision and opinions that people will follow. It is not our role to get out in front and be leading the debate on getting issues of the law outside of opinions. They'll be right. And that's how I would limit that.
David Evans again. I think that's a great question. To me, I think I agree with former Judge Bolito. I think it really leads into the election of judges, where our system of electing judges results in our mingling with people and keeping in touch with people, the community, and their concerns and values. And I think that's a very beneficial thing. At the same time, it's at a general level. It's not about specific cases, since we cannot talk with you about a specific case, and we cannot talk with you about how we might rule in a specific case is what I'm talking about. But your concerns are extremely important, and I think that they actually work their way many times, for example, even up to the U.S. Supreme Court, where there was one time a judge in New Jersey made the ruling that a person fleeing the police upon the arrival was not probable cause, and they reversed him after a big public ruckus. Thank you.
I think that the judge or the justice has a unique role in American society. We operate as a symbol of the entire system. The judicial canons for a judge or justice not only encourage us to be proactive in regard to justice, in regard to what we display to folks, but also requires us to do that. And I took that role very seriously. I think it's important that we get out into the community. I think that we cannot talk about the issues that come before us. That's very specific. But most people out there have no idea what the Court of Appeals does until it comes to an election time, or the Tea Party's talking about it. And I think that's unfortunate. If I was a justice, I would be more inclined to be more active in the community as a symbol of justice than I think what currently happens.
Ms. Polito, gentlemen, thank you for being here. We appreciate your time. While Justice Richter is coming up, I want to recognize the